Welcome back to Main Street Living, and we are happy to continue our discussion about self-driving vehicles with Christian Oliver from the Barnes firm.
That's right, Cheryl. So, Christian, what about self-driving vehicles and their quick decision making to avoid accidents? How quick is it?
It's super quick, way quicker than any of the three of us can react on the roads. And that's what the hope is with this technology, is that it will help avoid a lot of accidents. 94% of accidents are due to human error, and so hopefully it'll make our roads safer. But how they make those quick decisions is by pre-programming them in an algorithm before the accident ever happens, which leads to a lot of interesting ethical and legal debates.
I bet it does, because for me, my biggest fear, obviously you don't want to hit a person, but I don't want to hit an animal, and animals can run out of anywhere. And so, oh my goodness, how do self-driving vehicles decide what to prioritize in an unavoidable crash?
That's a great question. And somebody sits down in advance and makes all of those decisions.
Oh my gosh.
And they make the decisions for you and for me and for every other rider in that car. And it's based on probabilities, and it's based on ultimately the decision maker of the programmer of whether to, in your situation, hit the animal or to potentially, hit a tree and risk your own life instead.
Oh my gosh.
Right now, you have the ability to make that decision, hit the tree and sacrifice yourself, or hit the animal. And
Cheryl would hit the tree to save the cat.
Oh my gosh. I don't want to hit anything. I think I would try to not hit anything.
Well, that's the goal, right? The goal is to prevent hitting anything, but unfortunately, life comes at you pretty fast, and you can't avoid all accidents.
Yeah. I mean, can a self-driving vehicle actually mimic human instinct in emergencies?
No, absolutely not. Human instinct is an in-the-moment decision-making. There's nothing in the moment. The decision isn't being made. The decision has already been made, and it's just the outside criteria that invoke that decision. So this is nothing like human instinct whatsoever.
This creeps me out a little bit. Talk about phantom braking and program decision-making impacts and how they impact the injury lawsuits. I can't imagine what goes into that.
Well, here's the really interesting example. So let's say that you're driving on a three-lane highway, and there's a big truck with a payload in front of you, and something falls off that payload right in the middle of your lane, and it's big, it's heavy, you can't drive through it. And let's assume there's a motorcycle to your left and a bus to your right. Okay. Now, human instinct, you're going to make the decision of what to do there. In this scenario, a programmer has already decided what to do. Either jeopardize the passenger by running into this object, hitting the motorcyclist, or running into the bus. Now, what's the greater harm? Is it hurting yourself? Is it hurting one motorcyclist? Or is it jeopardizing an entire bus full of people? Well, what if the bus is full of children? What if the bus is full of convicts? These decisions cannot be made in real time. They're made in advance by a programmer. And who's to say the ethics of that situation? Are we all bound by the ethics of the programmer? Or do we have no agency or license to make our own decisions in these situations? What if we prefer to sacrifice ourselves over a bus full of children?
Oh my goodness.
Maybe that's like, it's going to be like when you have your donor card. Maybe you'll get to decide.
That's exactly that, and that's probably, and I say probably because I'm not a programmer. That's why I went to law school. I wasn't smart enough to do the ones and ohs. But perhaps they have ethical options. I choose to run into, the debris in the road instead of a furry animal, or instead of a bus full of children. And other people might opt, no, save my life first, take out that bus full of children.
Oh my goodness.
The point is that you don't get the right to make that decision as of now.
Well, who's liable? Who's liable in these phantom braking accidents?
All right, so phantom braking's a little different. Phantom braking is when you're driving along and the car senses something like that, debris that fell off the car in front of you, and then comes to a sudden stop, but there is actually nothing there. It's a false view.
Oh no.
Perhaps, it's a reflection off of something. It's just, it doesn't exist. That's why it's the phantom braking. And then you come to a screeching halt and someone rear ends you. Who's at fault? Well, it all boils down to who was driving at the time. And if the vehicle was being driven by autonomous technology, in theory, the manufacturer would be responsible. However, proving that is going to be difficult because someone's going to sue you as the owner of the car, so you're going to be liable too. So it's a big issue in the legal world today, and it's still being resolved.
How do you think the legal standards then will evolve for these self-driving vehicles? I mean, I'm thinking 100 years in the future, 500 years in the future, maybe we'll have flying cars by then. Who knows?
I would bet it would be much sooner than that. And we will evolve, but the cart is definitely far behind the horse when it comes to these things. There's going to be a lot of trial and error where there's bad outcomes, and then there will be an outcry to our legislators to update the code. But as of now, these issues are quite complicated and are meted out on a case-by-case basis.
So what role do insurance companies then play in these self-driving vehicle related incidents at this point?
Yeah, well, they're the ones ultimately making the decision whether to pay out or not. If I'm insured by an auto insurance company and I claim there's phantom braking, and they say, no, actually, it's the manufacturer's fault, not your fault. We're not covering, they're making those types of decisions right now. There hasn't been any scenarios where that's happened yet. So luckily, this hasn't been an issue that's arisen yet. But these are the things that are coming down the road. No pun intended.
This is when I say we all get into the Back to the Future time machine and we go 100 years into the future and see how all this is playing out. I think that'll help us all. So interesting moral and ethical questions that are just starting to be felt in the real world. Christian Oliver from the Barnes firm, thank you so much for being a friend to us here on Main Street Living.
It's always my pleasure.
Always great to have Christian with us. We need a legal mind on here now and again, because Cheryl, otherwise we'd have you crashing into trees just to save cats. So we need Christian.
I know, he really got me thinking, and it's a lot. He's got some answers for us, right?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Let's get in that time machine and go. And we're gonna play everything else out here right after this on Main Street. Don't go away.